That is one good looking steak, but that isn't my steak. This is my steak, and this is the man that's going to teach me how to cook it. If you don't know who this is Joshua Weissman. He has a YouTube channel with over 8.5 million subscribers, the author of a New York Times bestseller, and an overall cool guy.
All right, let's see if Josh can teach me how to cook a steak the right way. Let's get into it.
First things first, let's talk about what kind of steak to pick. You want to make sure that your steak is thick, and when I say thick, I mean 3 C's. In other words, you want to make sure you're getting a steak that's 1.5 to 2 inches thick.
My steak may have been on the thin side, but this is really all I could find today.
If you go any thinner than that, then you're probably going to overcook it before the outside is properly browned.
The foreshadowing here would make even Shakespeare blush.
Now there's so many cuts of steak. To me, the king that deserves the crown is the ribeye. But if I had to give you guys a list of what you should be using, T-bone, sirloin, strip, and ribeye, those are my top picks.
I went with a New York strip because I'm a lower middle class millennial, and this is what I could fit into the grocery bill this week.
Now for the most important tip I'm going to give you. Let your steak come up to room temperature before you sear it off. I cannot stress this enough.
We're going to listen to the pro here, so we're going to pop our steak onto a plate and let it come up to room temperature over the course of about 30 minutes or so.
If you do not let it rest, it is not going to get that nice, even, super crispy crust on the outside, and it's going to be gray. Take a medium to large size skillet and bring it up over medium-high heat with about 2 tablespoons of oil in it. Make sure this oil is a high smoke point oil.
I turned my burner on to high and I popped in about 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil.
Now while that's heating up, pat your room temperature steak with a paper towel just to make sure that it's dried off. And season it very generously with kosher salt and fresh cracked black pepper. Don't be too scared to go heavy on that salt. This is a thick steak, and it's very sad when you get an under-seasoned steak.
I can't argue with that, and I've actually been guilty of over-salting my steak in the past, so I'm kind of trying to be a little careful here, but I think we are okay with what we did here.
Now for the moment of truth. Once your pan is rip-roaring hot, you're gonna add your steak. Now the way you can tell that it's hot enough is the oil should be shimmering and moving around the pan really easily, and it should be just about the smoke. More importantly, you should hear this sound. Now, if you're like me and you like your steak medium rare, then you're gonna sear that bad boy at that hot temperature for 2 to 3 minutes on both sides until you get that nice crisp brown crust. Now, I'll talk about temperatures in a minute, but when you flip that steak to sear the other side, let it sear for about 30 seconds to a minute, then add 4 tablespoons or 56 grams of unsalted butter, 2 cloves of garlic lightly crushed, left in their skins, and 1 bunch of fresh thyme.
I don't ever keep whole heads of garlic in the house. I just buy a giant bag of already pre-peeled and freeze it, so that's what I use.
Let that butter melt and baste the steak over and over for a minute or so until you've reached the desired doneness. This is the other secret to good steak. Baste and baste and baste with butter. There is nothing that can go wrong with that. Make sure to keep a close eye on that internal temperature so you don't overcook it.
I was feeling super confident about how this was going until I saw this.
You know, you can do the touch test if you know it, but if you don't know it, then the internal temperature you're looking for medium rare is 135. Now, as soon as that steak is done, immediately take it out of the pan, place it on a cutting board, and pour all that sweet butter and juices on the top. And then let it rest for 5 to 8 minutes before cutting into it, and you've got the most amazing steak of your life. So yes, the answer is that simple. And if you follow these guidelines, you too can become a steak master. But before that happens, we've got one more set of B-roll.
Well, it's a little overcooked, but you know, he's right. It went from 115 degrees internal temp to 150 like that. And well, it is what it is. I paid for the steak, I'm gonna eat it. But I will say, despite this being like a completely well done steak, it's freaking good no matter what. Like, super tender, super flavorful. I don't mind it. If you served me this, I'd probably be a little bit weird at first, but after tasting it, I'd eat it no problem. It's really good. So we'll probably revisit this again in the future, but overall, I did a 7 out of 10. You let me know in the comments if you disagree or not, but that's all I got for today. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.